Knock for six. Knock for six.
I swear to God I've lost sight of who I am, but who I was is on the lamb. I'm gonna be the change I wanna see, but I'm blind to all the ones you thought.
How's it going? It's a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise. It's funny because I'm sitting here talking with you, and this happens sometimes. You know, I've listened to your music, I've watched your videos, and I'm like, I feel like I know a lot about you already.
Yeah, it's weird like that, right? But that's good, in a way.
Chris Bellavia, Matt Fraley, Joe Kelly, and Brett Miller. So, Chris, you're the lead vocalist. You write the songs for the band. Matt is the lead guitarist. Joe was the bass player and has moved to rhythm guitar.
That's correct.
Yeah, and Brett Miller is the drummer.
That's correct.
And so, actually, Matt was an addition to the band, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Like, did you previously have another guitarist and he was filling in?
Yeah, so we had the original lineup was Joe on bass, Brett on drums, and we were going to run 3 guitars. And so it was going to be me on lead vocals and guitar. Nick Hannafeld was on rhythm guitar. He is no longer with the band. And then Mike Holdren, who was on lead guitar, he is no longer with the band. I was in a band with them previous. So there's a connection there. So we needed a guitarist. And frankly, I didn't realize how taxing it was to play guitar especially when I was writing newer stuff. Because I wanted it to be a little bit more dynamic and interesting. And that's pretty hard, when you're playing guitar all the time. So at first it was just I was kind of bookending the set with playing guitar and in the beginning and the end, and then it became now it's just all right. We're gonna let the laptop play bass and let it all happen that way.
Yeah, that definitely seems like something that's becoming more and more popular. I was speaking with a group a week or two ago called Hats Off Gentlemen, It's Adequate. They're like a prog rock duo, and they use the laptop in their live performances for the drums. We were talking about that, like how do you keep it fresh and interesting when you like the laptop is going to play to a certain click, a certain tempo, and then how do you keep that like feeling live and fresh? And they had their take on that, which I thought was really interesting. Maybe I'll start with that question with you. Like, how do you feel like you guys still keep it, fresh and live feeling?
What was their take on it? I'm just curious.
Their take was that, it's kind of freeing to have, in their case, it's the drums that are from the laptop. And it's very freeing to know that you can go a little off time. You can go before the beat, after the beat. You can skip something that would normally be a cue for a human drummer. And the drummer's not going to mess up because the drummer can't hear you. Like the drummer's a computer,
So it was a error like forgiveness on their end is what you're like if they were ahead or behind one way or the other, it kept going and it wasn't the end of the world.
It's more like they were purposely playing with that, a little bit like a jazz musician might do. Like,
okay,
when I play in a jazz ensemble, I'm trying not to hit the beat exactly at times.
Yeah, you want to be in the pocket sometimes.
Correct, right. So sometimes you want to have that moment where it comes in and everything just kind of goes, and it all is exactly on the beat. But you can only have that if you have the other moments that are not exactly on the beat. So I purposely strum my guitar a little late to give it some swing, and that's kind of what they said they're doing with the computer. It doesn't confuse the computer, so that makes it really free for them to be able to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think for us, it's a part of how I have to write. Like, how there are sort of built-in points in each song, especially live, where you get a crowd response, or you can talk during the song, or things like that. I think playing with the track is nice because obviously, not just for the bass player reasons. I would like to have a live bass player. So if you're a bass player and you want to join the band, call me. I think I would like all live players, but for a lot of things like choir or synth elements, I don't have to have two keyboardists. Like a lot of prog bands have that, and I love those elements. I don't know anyone that plays keys really.
Mhm.
And there's a lot going on in the tracks layer wise, and it would just be a lot. So, and I really do like the structure of it because it's nice to know that like, okay, I can, we have a 30-minute set. This is 29 minutes and 10 seconds. It's perfect. If something goes wrong, we have a little bit of buffer to figure something out. And I don't know, you want to talk about rehearsing, right? You rehearse with that in mind, and I also write with that in mind. I try not to make that the focal point, but I also try to think about it more in like, is this too much or is this not enough? And I think, well, I think, we can use that one way or the other.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
even when I'm building the tracks, I'll build in space to talk, and I'll build in space for tuning or anything like that. So I don't know. It to me, it's nice to hear at the end of the set, wow, you guys are really tight. Now there's a downside to it, obviously, and it's that if you get off the click, you're screwed. Yeah, like you're an entire beat off or entire measure off, and it's kind of game over
Mhm.
for most of that song because you're just trying to get on, or if your drummer's click goes out, or the more technical you get, the more difficult I think um adapting to a situation really becomes.
I went to see this pianist playing, and he was doing usually on the piano. We comp the chords in jazz with your left hand, and then you play the melody stuff with your right hand, right? After his set, I went up and I said, "That's amazing! Like, how did you even think of that? That must have taken you years to practice and blah blah blah." And he goes, "I'm left-handed. I'm just being lazy."
It's funny.
And I was like, "Oh, it's a bass line on a computer." People could say, "Well, that's got to be so limiting," but no, if you think outside the box, basically, you can make
Mm,
it a tool that works really well, which is what hats off were saying to me about their drummer,
mm,
about their drummer, is they don't see it like a limitation. They see it like an invitation to figure out new solutions to new problems.
right. Yeah, no,
So,
it's helpful, but yeah, it's tons of pros and cons, especially live. I think in the studio it's like whatever, everything's so precise anyways.
mhm.
So it's like or not, depending on what you're going for, I guess. But for us it's pretty much dependent on the part, but for the most part it's got to be on the beat. Everything's to a grid. And it makes the translation from that to playing with the click and track, like, okay, everything's already gridded. So now my bass line's kind of sort of perfect. You know what I mean? Like live all of a sudden.
Mhm.
So it works out.
People in the audience typically they want to hear a nice sort of balance of, yeah, that's what I heard on the record, or
Right.
that's what I heard in the recording, but not feeling like they're just going listen to the recording. So that's a question of balance, right?
Right.
So part of
Right.
your balance is sort of built in, you know?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
You try to be you try to think ahead on that kind of stuff. At least I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, I think it's cool what you said about programming in a little time for talking and stuff. That's really cool
Mhm.
because then the live aspect from anybody's perspective would be what you say in that moment. You're not talking a script there, like you're reacting to the audience in real time.
Right.
You've built in the time, you know.
Right. When you're talking about like giving an experience, you got to try to connect. in a certain way, you know? Like my goal every show is to just make friends with everyone that I possibly can. So like if you come up to the table, it's not that I'm trying to sell you something. It's like, what's your name? You know what I mean? Like who are you? How'd you hear about us, you know?
It's never bothered me. I've been in quite a few bands over the years, and it's never bothered me to have the singer talking, whether it's whatever occurred to them at that moment or whether it whatever the thing is, and
Yeah.
mentioning things like, oh, I'm old enough to say we're selling CDs in the back of the hall, so
We still have CDs. It's cool.
yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, I think especially for independent bands, having actual physical merchandise is critical at this point in the way
Yeah.
things are with streaming. That you get 1 million streams, and according to Weird Al Yankovic, he had like 1 billion or almost 1 billion streams, and it bought him a $12 sandwich. So
Hey, how you
like
doing?
having
Al
merchandise.
here. Look, I'll make this really quick. I just want to thank you all for your amazing support. It's my understanding that I had over 80 million streams on Spotify this year. So if I'm doing the math right, that means I earned $12. So, enough to get myself a nice sandwich at a restaurant. So from the bottom of my heart, thanks for your support and thanks for the sandwich.
So like having merchandise and physical products for the band is important. But also, I'm still one of those guys that I do like listening to music, and I have the liner notes to read, and I have the
Yeah.
pictures that people chose to represent their music.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean like so we're working on an album right now. The title, it's a working title, but I think we're gonna stick with it. It's Blue Like Goodbye. And we're actively talking about like, okay, like what all do we want to include? You know, I think the tracks are done. And so it's like, and even if it doesn't come out until like the fall or like say like, you know, late winter, um, I kind of want that done now. You know what I mean? So I can just like do the fun stuff.
Yeah,
But yeah, but like you've got to have those conversations, and I think it's the value added stuff. You know, it's like if you're gonna do it right, and you
absolutely.
ought to have all that art there, in my opinion.
Yes. Like when I put out stuff that I do, I tend to put out videos on YouTube that I feel represent what's happening lyrically in the song, or if it's an instrumental to set that mood. And there's
Yeah,
debate about whether or not that's a good idea, because it's kind of like when people ask you, what's this song about? And you just tell them, like it's about
right.
this. Whereas there is at least a group of people out there that would say, no, like you can give sort of an idea. This is kind of what I was thinking, but the way that you interpret the song, it really is up to you. Like
Yeah.
there's in messing around, you
Hmm.
talk about, like you say, all my friends are dead. I think that's the
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, is he referring to friends who have actually died, or does he mean like the fair weather friends that in that moment where things are going bad, they're not there for you?
I think it depends on the song too sometimes. Like there are broad strokes, and I think you kind of nailed it for messing around. It's like, well, they could be dead, or they're just dead to you, and whether it's in that moment or in entirety. So yeah, everything's kind of it's all up for interpretation. It's all got broader. I don't want to say appeal in mind, but like I think people can typically relate with a lot of what I've got going on lyrically.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one, actually, it was you guys did an interview with Phil Yale on Phil's
Yeah,
Tracks, which is how I was introduced to you guys. And there was
yeah.
one part where Matt was talking about how a lot of people can relate to the things in your songs, but for different reasons. What I took from that was like, yeah, like in Monument, as I understand, it was basically a breakup song.
Yeah, for sure. So Monument, it's kind of talking about a crossroads more than anything else. So yes, shortly before I wrote that, or maybe during, depending on your, interpretation of my life's journey. I was going through a breakup, and um, so it's saying I could be a husband with a level head intact, all the rest, but nothing's ever changed, right? And geez, I'm forgetting the lyrics now. But one verse is talking about the breakup. The other verse is talking about the other road that I can go down, which was I was dating a girl with a kid, and she I was like, all right, well, I can get back together with this girl who this is not going well, or I don't see it going well. And then or I can go to this girl who has a kid, and it's like, it's cool, whatever. But really, what's really cool, something that I've always wanted to do was to, like, raise and provide for a family, since I was a kid. And so, like, I don't know, I was always kind of drawn to that in a way, I was like, oh, cool, like I could probably do that. Like I could handle that. And so, but after dating that girl for a while, I was like, I'm not in love with her. But this is a very sweet little girl, and I'm gonna feel really bad about this. You know what I mean? That one of those kinds of things. So yeah, it kind of goes back to like, all right, I can go be a boyfriend, be a husband, and I'm gonna be destroyed and hate my life. Or I could date this girl who's okay, but I could go be a dad, and I could just totally leapfrog, three or four steps. And then the chorus, you're the reason I'm around. I can't quite explain it. I didn't mean to get you down. I just couldn't know it all. And that's almost directly towards the kid. So
I could be a father with a level head intact. She would always be my daughter. A monument of what I am. But the thought of starting over, it's half-hearted at best. I think that
oddly personal, but I think that's kind of what makes our music, and my lyrics, my lyrics. And then, like you say, you can extrapolate whatever you want to extrapolate from there. But if you're asking me what it's about, I'll tell you.
I'm curious why you say oddly personal, because not everybody writes about their life, but I mean, I've chatted with a couple of songwriters who have talked about this being like a diary. But then
Right.
it's kind of like when we write a song, we're writing down in our diary. And then when we share the song, we're opening up our diary, and we're not just letting people read it. We're putting music to it, and we're singing it, and we're putting it out to the world to listen to, which is a very vulnerable moment,
Right. Yeah, I have a hard time talking about the songs on stage, if I'm being completely honest. Like, there's a sort of, there's an element to, especially the newer stuff. Like we have a new song called Torn in Two, where it's like I want to talk about the meaning behind it, but every time I'm there, I'm at a loss for words.
waves crash all around me. Let it turn us into dust. Let this all fade into nightmares, and let the water overcome us. So let go.
I've talked to so many many singers, songwriters. I'm a songwriter myself, and I know. I mean, like, you had that moment that could have meant a lot to you at that moment, and it doesn't go away. But then when you then share what the song's about, when you have to actually stop and not be singing the lyrics and not listening to the bass line, and are we on the click and everything, when you stop and you actually have to focus on what was the feeling of this moment, or what am I trying to express, it's
Right.
hard. Like, I openly admit that I get choked up with stuff like that all the time, but I'm kind of like that. I get choked up when my students, I'm in my classroom right now.
Yeah.
And my students, sometimes they're playing a strings part by, I don't know, Beethoven or whatever, and they're nailing it. Like, it just, dynamics and everything is working. And I have to take a moment to compose myself before I put down the baton and turn around to the audience, because, like, I'm ready to cry, I
Yeah.
don't think it's weird. I just think it would be weird to not feel all of that.
That's why it exists.
Exactly. Like, why do we
Really.
do this? It's just sound moving in waves across the air. It shouldn't matter, but it
Right.
does. And for some of us, it becomes our life, I
Mhm.
don't think it's weird. I just think not everybody gets it. So if that's what you mean, okay. But a lot of us do get it. So I don't see it as weird.
Well, then I'm in good company.
Is this everything I wanted? Is this everything I
Let's talk about Cataracts, which is the Hate Work song.
Hey, works on. Yeah.
I bet you're not going to get teary-eyed talking about this one.
Yeah, this one's far less, well, it's still personal, but more like oh, it's personal, not it's personal.
Now this is personal.
Exactly. Cataracts, the Hate Work song, was basically the epitome of I really hate this job. And I've got to go. Like, and more than that, actually. So this is a little personal, but no, it was more that this isn't what I wanted to do with my life kind of situation. Like, I was probably mid-20s, and I was just like, you have dreams, you aspire to do something, and then you get stuck doing something you didn't expect or you didn't want to do, and you're like, this really sucks. So, I swear to God, I've lost sight of who I am, but who I was is on the lam. I've got to be the change I want to see, but I'm blind. It's just like, okay, like I'm in control of the situation, but I don't know what the hell's going on. So I guess I lost control, And it's basically just talking about a lot of the emotions that go on during that.
If there's somebody out there that can't relate to this, then good on you, because
Yeah.
I know.
You're blessed, my friend.
Yeah, exactly.
I swear to God, I've lost sight of who I am, but who I was is on the lam. I've gotta be the change I wanna see, but I'm blind to all the ones. You thought that you would bring me down, but I thought that I was stronger than your jabs and taunts, your thoughts, your subtle threats when you walk by. If you wanna scream, then let me know. Please always make me wanna scream.
So this brings me to one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, just about, like, how much of that song is already there when you take it to the band? Because I'm listening to the band, and that song particularly, it starts off with a softer sounding guitar thing, and then boom, it goes into this intensity. How much of that is already there when you take it to the band? So I'm thinking about, like, for example, Reaching. There's one version of Reaching, and it's got all of the build and all of the layering and the panning.
I'm not enough. I'm giving up. I'm falling harder, but not for you. I'm reaching
then there's the acoustic version of it that it's not just you guys doing an acoustic guitar and singing the same song. Like, you've really thought through the arrangement of that with the strings coming in and the drummer turns off the snare on the snare drum, all those things. How much of that is you guys talking through that, and how much of that was already on the demo when you brought it to the band?
So is that just for Reaching or Cataracts, or is it just generally when I'm writing?
So specifically, I was starting with Cataracts, but maybe I'm talking generally. Like, how would you say generally that process works, the creative process of you writing a song, bringing it to the band, and what does that look like?
Sure. So it can go one of two ways. So option number one is closer to Cataracts and Reaching, the original version of Reaching, where it's like, okay, the song's basically done. There might be some, ironing out we need to do, whether it's drums or, bass lines, whatever the case may be. But for the most part, it's done. And I do try to keep it open where it's like, all right, you're the one playing it. If you got something better, cool. If not, I sort of, curate a lot of that. But regardless, 95% of it is probably done. Something like Reaching acoustic, it's more of a conversation over time where it's like, man, I wonder what this would sound like acoustic. You know what I mean? Like that kind of question pops up. And I either run with it or say, hell no, Yeah. So it kind of depends on a lot of it. I think honestly a better example for something that we collaborate on, like truly collaborate on, the only one that's released right now where that was the case was I'm Better Without You. A riff, which was sent to me by a friend who was like, do you want to use this? I'm like, yeah, I can totally use that. So
cool. Okay.
Yeah, it was super cool. And he was gracious enough to let me to kind of let me run with it. And so I took it and I got like the first verse or so. And I was like, all right, guys, where do we want to go? And we wrote it like that. And again, it's like it's a flow thing, like you can stick to the chorus, verse, chorus, whatever structure, or you can kind of just flow with the people you have in the room. Because I'm Better Without You does not have any particular set structure, which is probably one of my favorite parts about it, and none of it feels forced.
I guess I wasn't expecting it to be like across the board, but generally, like you said, you answered my question. Like a lot of the times it's pretty much done, and then it's just, reacting to the moment.
The songs that we really grind out in a room, to me, are my favorite. Because it's like, it's not just and I feel like that's all I've ever really like craved when it comes to songwriting. It's like I need someone to bounce it off of and for them to make that part better. And one of the things that I loved about Mike when he was in the band was that, like, Monument, the way it starts, started totally different. Like was not the same part, and then he wrote this lead, and I'm like, that we're focusing on that now. You know what I mean? And so I give a ton of credit to Mike and all that he contributed lead wise. And it was really hard to try and write leads after that because I was not a heavy lead writer. So, and before Matt joined the band, I was like, all right, I'm writing the leads, you know, because I'm gonna write these songs one way or the other, damn it.
There's a lead guitar. Yeah, it was messing around. Who played the guitar lead in that one? It's about 3 minutes, less than 3 minutes in. It changes the guitar line, like the rhythm line completely. I was just sitting there at that moment thinking a lot of the high guitar parts are really pointed, dun, 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 rather than like a legato line, you know? And just as I was thinking that, boom, this part changes, the rhythmic section changes, and the guitar lead comes in. Is that Matt?
Yeah, so I wrote it. I did not record it. Okay. Mike, this was pre-Matt. Mike recorded that.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
and
that...
Believe it or not, it's out of key.
Really?
And so we actually re-recorded it, and we're going to release it at some point.
I didn't hear that, honestly. I didn't. Well, let me say that clearly. I didn't hear it that way. I heard a lot of dissonance in your chords and in a lot of the things that happen, and none of it sort of fought against my ear. It was more like I like the dissonance, so that when it comes back in, it's kind of like I mentioned earlier, like when it comes back in, you know, you have that moment where the harmonies are epic and they're like beautiful, almost very much choir-like, set against that, you know. Actually, one of the things I do when I listen to any music is I try to think of themes. Do I hear themes in a band, or do I hear themes? And one of the things I heard in your songs and the way the band approaches it was juxtaposition. I feel like you guys use a lot of times like these beautiful harmonies against these dissonant chords, and then you do things where it's like starts off really soft, ding 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 ding, and then whop, it goes into like this huge intense thing. That happens in a lot of your songs, you know. You do that a lot. And then there's one song that there are 2 times that just totally stops, just kind of like silence.
Reaching?
I believe it is.
But maybe I'm not
because I heard it and I thought, oh, that's cool. For a moment, actually, I thought maybe my internet connection had gone. And then I looked and I was like, oh, that's cool, because I was like right in the moment, you know, like I'm air drumming along. Your drummer is really good, by the way.
Yeah, no, he's really good.
The beginning of Messing Around, that like he's doing, like, I think it's triplets or something. Like, the whole thing is great. Like the way the vocals fit with the guitars, the layering of the different sounds. Like I saw in one of your live images, there's somebody is playing through an orange amp.
I have an orange. It's a solid state.
My first amplifier that I played through like live and stuff was a Marshall JCM 800 tube amp.
That's classic, man.
2 12-inch Celestian speakers, classic. And I played a Fender Strat, you know.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're rocking and rolling that there.
But then when the solid state amps started to become popular, for obvious reasons, the tubes are super hard to get. You know, they're very expensive. Solid state was not highly thought of at that time. But definitely by 2000, even before that, people had started to use it. It's kind of like we were talking about, like the way you use the tools that you have at hand, right? People started to
Yeah,
use
it sounds better. Go for it.
that's
Or
it,
if you make it sound really good for far less money.
that's it.
Yeah.
And those orange amps, I mean, I'm not sure which model you have. Which one do you have there?
Brush Pro 120.
Brush Pro 120.
It's actually a very good amp. Exactly what you want it to do. You know how it'll like kind of give you like an overdriven sound. Any amp, right? On the clean channel, if you pushed it hard enough, it does that very easily. And the barrier to entry to get that tone is very low,
Yeah.
I did not record anything on any of our recordings with that. That is what I used live, but so for the EP, the rhythm tone is a JCM 2000.
Wow. That's okay. That's interesting. Because, I mean, I guess by the 2000, they were doing similar things. Because one of the things about the JCM 800 that was amazing, but also challenging, was that I couldn't get a good, clean, slightly distorted sound. Like
Yeah.
you could put it on 10 and still the clean sound was crystal clear, which actually at the time was one of the big selling points. But playing some stuff that I play, I want to have a little crunch to it.
Yeah.
Even Helen might have called it the brown sound, you know?
Yeah.
Like I want to have a little bit of dirtiness to my clean
A
sound.
little stank on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
But
you can't
literally.
get that with an 800. It's just too good an amp. Honestly,
Yeah. Damn.
I know it's a terrible problem to have, especially at 10, which would shake the house with a crystal clear sound.
Yeah.
But with the orange amps, they scoop out the mid and they give you like that a different tone, right? Initially, that tone was not what I would have been looking for in the late 80s, early 90s. I wouldn't have wanted that. I would have tried to avoid that. I wanted something thicker. But the orange amps are known for doing that and still managing to get you a nice dark tone. So somehow their lows are also really powerful. So I think you get a nice balance.
I don't wanna go, but going alone is better. Peace to advance. I don't wanna show you what you really know. Can't tear the air out from.
So you guys, you recorded with Patrick, is it Shekut? I'm terrible with these names.
Check it.
Check it. Well, Patrick, if we have messed up your name here, please let us know. I apologize.
Sorry, Pat. But one thing I do know how to pronounce is Underhill Recordings.
That's where I was going next.
And that's him. Yeah.
Yeah. So Pat works at Underhill or is Underhill?
He is Underhill.
Yeah. I'm always curious because I hear a band and I know you have your voice. Like in your case, literally your voice, but I meant that as a band. Like you have your
No,
sound,
for sure.
you know? How did it come around as a collaboration with Pat? Did you know each other previously? Did you hear his work or did he hear you guys and go, I can do something awesome with you guys? And how did it come about?
Yeah, so I had worked with Pat in a prior band, the Harbor Divide, which is where I played with Joe, like 2017. I was drumming actually for this one, and I had drummed for their song Burden.
I need you there to save me. I need you there to take me home. I need you there to save me. I need you there to take
That was really the only time I had ever worked with Pat directly. And so when this band formed, we're like, where do we want to record? And I kind of always had Pat in the back of my mind. Like, I didn't really know him all that well, but like through this process, I've gotten to really know him, but both through the EP and then doing the singles and then doing the acoustic stuff and then the album. Like, he's an awesome dude. But he was always that guy in the back of my mind where I was like, this guy's in my backyard. I gotta take advantage of it. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta take advantage of this opportunity.
Your music. I haven't heard you guys live, but there's really an authentic feel about what you guys do in the studio. How did you maintain that, or do you feel like you did?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really been my mission. So as far as the EP songs are concerned, I was still a pretty raw vocalist, and there's autotune, there's Melodyne, there are a ton of programs that you could use to help with that. But realistically, with my vocal style, we really felt it best to, like, all right, if you're gonna correct anything, it's like the obvious stuff, but like you want to keep it, how it is. And I think when writing the newer material, I really was trying to give an authentic take, like I was really trying to get the best take and for my delivery to be as on point as I can make it. Now, guitars and drums, that's sometimes the part's the part, and there's only so much you can do with that. But drums, they control the feel. Toms control the tension. Cymbals give you release, halftime, up tempo, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And Brett does an awesome job on the drums. So
Definitely. I totally agree. In fact, I've said it already. And Brett and Matt were in a band previously together before.
Yeah, they were in Echostatic. They had like 3 songs that they released. It was really good.
I think you're right. It's pathetic. I just despise the way you said it. It's like you know how to get under my skin. I always let the wrong ones in.
Knockforsix, I understand it means basically to like surprise someone, to knock them on their butt, and they didn't want to say
Yeah,
knock
to be
them on their
surprised.
butt.
Knock. Yep.
Yeah, there are so many things. There are quotes on the internet about you guys saying that you're, and with your interview with Phil as well, we're an eclectic band. We have a lot of different influences. I love that. One of the things I have to mention as a Canadian that's kind of required from the outside, which Matt asked me to mention anyway because he loved that song.
Oh, okay.
He did say in our little group chat, please mention that song.
I distanced myself long ago, an unutterable feeling, nightly visits passing by. Imagine what you're feeling. If I could find the promised land, I hope you'd follow. Then maybe you can see me too. Imagine a world outside yourself.
Are you familiar with the Tragically Hip?
I'm not.
Okay, so if you listen to the Hip, they don't sound anything like your band. But there's the from the outside, the first verse, I couldn't help but in my mind make a comparison to their vocalist, Gord Downey. Sadly, he passed away a couple of years ago from brain cancer.
I don't know how old I am, found armor in my belly from the 16th century. Conquistador, I think. They don't know how old I am, they found armor in my belly. Passion out of machine revving tension. Lashing out at machine revving tension. Rushing by the machine.
You don't even know that,
revving
man.
tension.
So again, it's like how we interpret things, right? Like when I
But
heard
you
that-
even singing that line, I could hear it.
yeah,
I totally
okay.
hear it.
Yeah, and it's just the kind of way that you sing it, and that obviously wasn't you trying to imitate them. You never heard of the band. I just think the way that you've taken this mix and you've put it into this is our sound, I think that's super cool. So, well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I feel backed against the wall with no way out. The only thing to do now is live without everything I thought I wanted. And you were there. I couldn't look at you. I couldn't face the truth. 'Cause I couldn't tell you all my mistakes. I thought of you every time I messed up. I fight every chance I get, but I can't sleep.
Here, so I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me, and thank you for sharing the music that you're creating.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on, and hope we can talk more in the future.
Yes, I would like to do this again.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Chris.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Good night.